Hello, welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. You're listening to the newsstreamingnetwork.com. We are home of Going Solo and Going Bold, and we are so happy to have you here with us today. We are on the Going Solo Life After Relationship Loss, and I am Cece Shatz. I am your host today. I am fondly called the Doyenne of Relationship Building, and I am connecting singles throughout the Going Solo Network. My personal website is goingsolonetwork.com. So check it out. We'd love for you to do that. And if you'd like to get a hold of me real quick, all you have to do is email goingsolonetwork at gmail.com. Well, let's get on with the show because we've got a lot happening here today. We're going to be talking about communication. We know that communications are so very, very difficult as we're moving forward through relationship loss. And so we have one of the best people to be able to talk to us. We have Debbie Martinez. Hello, Debbie.
Hi, good to see you.
Oh, it is great having you. Now, Debbie, you've been on our show several times, and we love having you. We want to thank you for being, an avid, host or a guest with us, and we do appreciate that. But you are the founder and the president of Transformation Through Divorce. And you also provide divorce and post-divorce and co-parenting coaching. You're also a certified life coach, and you work with the Florida Supreme Court certified family mediator, a Florida Supreme Court qualified arbitrator, and you're also trained in collaborative divorce in Florida and South Carolina, which is so vital because I think those out there don't realize what collaborative divorce is. And I know we're not going to, maybe we can touch on a little bit here today, but it's a very important subject that people need to be, more understanding. So I hope that sometime in the future when you're on the shows with us, you can help us with that a little bit.
I'd love to get that message out because I think it's a great way to get divorced.
It is. It is. I mean, a lot of things are changing and shifting in divorce. It's not like it used to be where we have to, get our swords out and start fighting, with among each other as we're battling in court. We don't necessarily have to do that nowadays. We can actually work together as a unit with our team of divorce professionals and really achieve what our families want. And so I think that that's very, very important. So today we're going to talk about setting boundaries. That is very important. It's important before divorce because I think a lot of times we don't have that. We don't have boundaries before divorce. So we have to set them during divorce and then also continue our boundaries after divorce. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Great. So before I talk about specific setting boundary techniques, there's some things that kind of lay that foundation when you're talking about communication. And one of them is for people that are going through the divorce and have not done their parenting plan yet, right? Because in your divorce, you're going to have your financial settlement and you're going to have your parenting plan. Parenting plans are so very important and not a whole lot of time goes into them. But if you haven't done your parenting plan, you want to make sure that in your parenting plan, there is a section where you can put in there how you want to communicate. For example, I have had clients that they absolutely cannot talk on the phone. And so in the parenting plan, they have in there, it's either by text or by email. And what that does is it holds the other person accountable. You have to communicate in that form. You can't decide you're going to go by phone when it's in the parenting plan that you can only communicate via text or email. So that's very important. If you know that you have major communication issues with your ex and he triggers you on the phone, you can't remember half of what was said, make sure in the parenting plan that you address how you want to be communicated with. Also, and you can also have a combination. It just doesn't have to be by text or just by email. You can have a combination. Also, one of the other issues is you want to respond to any text or email in a timely fashion. That's very important, especially down the road. If you get into some problems with your ex and he's like, oh, well, she doesn't respond in a timely fashion, you have proof that you have, which segues into my next very important issue with communication is on your laptop. On your desktop, you should have a folder. And every form of communication you have, every email, every text, goes in that folder, and you label it. And so if you get a text, you can send it to your email, and then you could drag it into your folder. And that's very important, because if you get down the road a year from now and all of a sudden it's he said, she said, you have the text, you have the email where you've laid out, yes, I am changing the schedule. I am picking my son or daughter up at this time. You have agreed to it, and you have proof of that. And a lot of people get into some problems if they just don't have that paper trail, so to speak. The other thing, generalization with communication, is you want to speak, text, or email in a very businesslike, non-emotional fashion. You don't want to be calling names. You don't want to be saying anything that you don't want somebody else to see, or you don't want your ex to use against you. And that's very important. And especially if you're talking on the phone. By now, you've been married to this person. You know what your triggers are. You should be self-aware enough to know that. And you should know what his triggers are. Please try and stay away from those trigger points, right? I mean, I know we get upset, and I know we want to call names, and we want to touch on the past and all of that. But keep in mind, I always tell my clients, if what you're going to say or do, is that going to get you closer or further away from your goal? And if venting is going to get you further away because you're calling names and it feels good in the moment, then that's not going to get you closer to your goal. It's going to get you further away. So keep your tone, keep everything calm, tone of voice, be careful of the words that you use. Even in emails, I've had some people who hire me just to read their emails before they send them out. And 9 times out of 10, they're writing them, they're angry, they haven't let them sit for a day and then go back and double check them. And had they sent it out, it would have created a lot of problems.
That's good advice. I mean, I used to tell those in my divorce support group, is like, just put it in a Word document. You're mad, right? And you want to respond. So write it in a Word document, put out everything, pour yourself out, do whatever you want to do, say it all there, then go to sleep. And then get up the next day and then edit it.
Yeah.
You got to take it. You got to take all that emotion out of it, because it's now a business transaction. And so you have to remove all that emotion. And so often we, want to respond right away to something because we're so passionate. We have this emotion, pent in, and we want to expel that, but that's not going to get us anywhere. Yeah,
it's not. And where it might get you is in the direction you don't want to be, right? Yeah. And it's just going to compound the problem. Mm-hmm. And so you really have to let it sit. And like you said, I agree with you. Get it out, write it all out, get everything out there so you feel better, but don't hit that send button, hold back until the next morning. And definitely don't be doing emails and texts if you're sitting there with a glass of wine or something like that. I mean, you really want to have all of your faculties when you're addressing issues.
And, I was thinking too, Debbie, this is why divorce coaches are so important. They're so vital, is because they can help you with that emotional part of it. They can help you through that. And so often, like when you said that you have them send the emails to you, and then you go through them, edit them, and see if this is really what they really truly want to portray in the email. You couldn't have an attorney do that. I mean, that would cost you an absolute fortune to do it. They don't have the time to do it, nor do they really get as close to you as a divorce coach does. A divorce coach really, really gets more, I don't know how I can word it, but they really get more one-on-one with you. And attorneys want to do that. It's not like they don't want to be like that, but they can't because it's so hard. And they're there for the law. They're there to make sure things are handled legally the way they're supposed to do. They want to make sure you're not getting railroaded. They've got a legal aspect of it, where a coach is a little bit different, and they look at things a little bit differently for that, and they help you with that emotional part of it, which is crucial, I think, as we're going through divorce.
I agree. I mean, next to your settlement agreement and your parenting plan, getting through this and keeping your emotions intact and keeping focused on the goal and having a plan post-divorce is so important. And like you said, the attorney, that's not their wheelhouse, right? And then I've also heard attorneys say, oh, well, my paralegal can do what a divorce coach does. And that's incorrect, because a paralegal doesn't have the time. They don't have the training in that. Their training is in proofreading and looking at documents and that sort of thing. They don't have the time to handhold if that's what a client needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because sometimes they just need that. They need, and that's why, I thought today we would talk about the communication, setting those boundaries, because a lot of it is there's a huge emotional aspect of that as we're going through trying to develop, our parenting plan and develop, our assets and trying to work through those type of things. And, there's all of this emotional, feelings that we have with things and the changes that we're going through. And so a divorce coach can kind of help walk you through that, because they're, number one, experienced in that. They're trained in it, and they know exactly how you feel, because most of the time divorce coaches are divorced themselves.
Yeah.
They've gone through it. Yeah.
Yeah. And they hold you accountable, right?
Yeah.
They check up on you. They hold you accountable. They make sure you're doing things in a timely fashion so that you can move forward. Mm-hmm. So I agree. I think everyone should work with a divorce coach in one way or another. Mm-hmm. But so those were kind of the foundational stuff for communication. And now to talk about like the specifics and setting boundaries. So a couple of the things that I talk to my clients about is, you have to know what your triggers are, right? And so lots of times just seeing your ex's name come up on your phone triggers you like right away. And so I always say to them, listen, if you're one of those people that you get triggered by even looking at his name, how are you going to have a conversation with him on the phone if now you're stepping into the conversation already triggered? So I say, pick a different name. So it doesn't come up Bob, it comes up, giraffe, or it's something that's going to make you not feel triggered and something that's going to make you laugh. Mm-hmm. So I had someone who their name on the phone was Thank God. And every time she saw it, she like laughed about it. And so she didn't step into that conversation already negative. Mm-hmm. And so that's one thing that you can do for communication. The other thing is when we're setting boundaries, Cece, it's so important. You have to follow through on those boundaries. And as hard as that is, because now someone maybe who's been in control and now they're divorced and they're losing that control over you. And now you're setting boundaries. They're going to up the ante, right? They're going to up their game. And you have to be steadfast and convicted that, no, this is my boundary and this is what I'm sticking to. And that's difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. And then also what comes to mind is really making sure that boundary is like authentic, is real, that you're not just setting a boundary to try to hurt the other party, that the boundary is really authentic to you. It's something that it really truly is important to you, and something that, going further, in your life, it's something that's a workable thing.
Absolutely. You can't make it like a threat, right? You can't make a threat if you can't follow through on it. Then it's pointless, it's worthless, and you've done more damage. So you want to make sure that when you're setting your boundaries, you're setting something that you feel you can follow through on. And then, as you get used to setting the boundaries and telling the person, well, no, I've already told you this is how it's going to work, and you get more comfortable with that, then you can start setting more boundaries or, more intense boundaries. But along with having the mantra is a lot of what I get from my clients is, well, my ex, he or she is sending me, 20 text messages, 20 emails a day. Well, in that case, I say you set your boundary. You send them an email and you say, I understand maybe, you're anxious about X, Y, however, I am going to answer all your texts and emails by 5 o'clock or whatever time you designate, and you ask them to bundle them all together. If they can't bundle them all together, then let them know. You might send me 20, but they're not all going to get answered, immediately when you send them, unless it's an emergency. If it's something that can wait, then you bundle them yourself and you send one email at the end of the day. But you let them know you're not going to be responding to every, like, he needs socks or shoes or whatever. You're going to respond to all of that at one time. And it really takes you taking back the control of your communication. And you're setting that boundary with them, because this can be a problem, if they want to harass you.
Right. Another thing too, as you were mentioning, is like maybe saying that that you'll answer it only on business days, working Monday through Friday, that you're not going to answer something on a weekend. And this will help you if there's something that you need to maybe talk to your divorce coach on, or you need to talk to your attorney on. They're not working on the weekend, so you can't get back with them the next day, to be able to respond. And so you want to give yourself a couple days to respond, maybe 2 or 3 days in which to respond, and you will not be responding on a weekend. So if they send you something on Friday, you're not going to be responding to it until the following week, and then you count your 1 or 2 days that you
Right.
have to respond, because you are entitled to a weekend too. You're entitled to that time off.
Well, and you're entitled to not be inundated. I mean, that's stressful. It's time consuming. It's always puts people on edge every time they see that text or that phone call come through, or the email. And so you just let them know, I'm only going to respond X, Y, and Z. And then that's where, you can come in with a mantra. You should always have certain mantras. So for example, let's say, you've told him, listen, I'm only going to respond to emails after 5 o'clock. Well, now he's sending you at 3. How come you're not responding? And so the first couple of times you respond back with the same mantra. I'm only responding after 5 o'clock. Yeah, but I'm only responding after 5 o'clock. And so what that helps you do is it helps you take the emotion out of it, because now you're proactive. You already know what you're going to say. Mm-hmm. And you're just reinforcing to him, okay, or her, this person set the boundary, they're sticking to it. And I mean, that's just how it's going to be. And then you just respond after 5 o'clock. And you can have several mantras for different situations, but it's helpful if you have those and you're proactive, because then you don't have to think about it, and you're not getting upset and you're not getting uptight, because you already know, okay, this is going to be my mantra for this, and this is going to be my mantra for that. And it really, having those mantras really helps a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Now, what about like our own, like we want to set boundaries for ourselves, but then we do need to honor and respect boundaries that they're maybe setting for us. So as long as they're within reason, right, and they're setting their boundaries, if they're saying they don't want to answer something until after 5 o'clock, then we have to also respect that as a partner,
No, absolutely. And it goes back to, you're not going to ask someone to do something that you're not willing to do yourself, right? So if you're asking them, please don't drop the kids off early, and then now you're dropping the kids off early, well, that's not going to fly. So just keep in mind, whatever you're asking of them, you have to be willing to follow through on your end if they ask it of you.
Right.
And, you can decide too, is this what they're requesting, or their boundary, or whatever? What is the reason behind that? And so the next excerpt that I want to talk about, I used one example, but 3 different ways that you're looking at it. So for example, if your ex asks you to do something, you need to ask her, okay, where is this coming from? Right? And it can be coming from one of 3 places. Their request could be that they really are asking because they are concerned about the kids, they care about the kids, or they're asking you to do something because they want to feel in control of you or the situation. And then the third thing is they just want to make things difficult for you. And so I use the example of, you pack your children's lunch on transition day, right? Everybody has that transition day. I pack the kids' lunch in a soft, cushy, coolie thing, send them off to school. The ex picks them up. Well, now he's sending an email and he says, listen, you know, the kids really don't need that cushy coolie thing. It's a lot for them to lug. It's a lot for them to carry. They're always looking for it, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so is that coming from a place that he really does care about the kids? Like he's gotten feedback from the kids like, oh, gee, you know, I forgot it. Or, you know, they're 2, 3, 4 years old and they're trying to carry this cushy thing with their backpacks and everything. Well, then that's coming from a place of he really does care. And then you need to think about, okay, he has a point here. Let me reevaluate this, right? The second one would be, what if he just wants to control the situation? And so now he has found a way that he can try and control what you pack for the kids' lunch and how you pack for the lunch, right? And so in that case, you're like, well, am I going to like dig my heels in and I'm going to show him, I'm going to send that coolie, you know, every time. And now you're just creating problems, right? It's on transition day. Put that day, put their lunch in a brown paper sack, send them off to school. And if you want to send the coolie the other days, that's great. You know, people always, they want to win. And then they look at winning like getting back at the other person, but that doesn't always mean you're winning. In some cases, it means you're losing, right? If your goal is to get back at them and you're making things more difficult for you. Mm-hmm. And so I just always say, you know, be careful about your reasoning. Like you said, why are you going against what they're asking you to do? Is it because you're vindictive? Is it because you're angry with them? You want to win? You want to get back at them? Or is it that, you know, listen, I really strongly believe that they need to have their lunch in this coolie. But the same token is now he's going to make things difficult. So what happens? He or she doesn't send the coolie back on transition day back to you. So what are you going to do? Keep buying those soft, cushy coolies to prove a point? No. Again, you just go back to the brown sack on the day of transition and you just let it be. Picking and choosing your battles, right? But trying truly, and it's difficult because a lot of my clients, they're angry. They've been hurt, right? You've been hurt. They've been cheated on, abused, whatever the case may be. They don't want, when I say, listen, try to see where your ex is coming from, they laugh at me. They don't want to see where their ex is coming from. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it helps you dictate your response and your emotions and figure out, is it really he cares about the kids? Because if it is, then you really should be caring about the kids.
Right.
And so your communication is going to be different with them once you can figure out where they're coming from.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Very good advice. We're going to cover this in a little bit more when we come back from our break. So before we do, we want to make sure you guys know that you are talking with Debbie Martinez here today, and she is the founder and president of Transformation Through Divorce LLC. She's a certified divorce coach. I mean, gosh, she does a lot. She's a family mediator, a court qualified arbitrator, and also a collaborative divorce coach. And so we want to make sure you guys can get a hold of her. You can get a hold of her at Transformation Through Divorce. And that's a TRANSFORMATION through THRU and then divorce, DIVORCE.com. And then if you want to email her again, it's Debbie, DEBBIE at transformationthroughdivorce.com. So make sure that you do that. Let her know that you watched her here on the show. We would appreciate that. And let's take a quick break. Go have a drink and we'll be right back. We just got a 30-second commercial and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You guys are listening to the Going Solo Life After Relationship Loss on New Streaming Network. goingsolonetwork.com. And we are also the home of WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio and Going Solo Media and Going Bold Media. So we want to thank you guys for joining us here today. We are with Debbie Martinez, and we're talking about communication, setting boundaries. And Debbie is a certified life coach, Florida Supreme Court certified family mediator, a Florida Supreme Court qualified arbitrator, and she's also trained in collaborative divorce in Florida and California. She handles both divorce, through divorce, post-divorce, co-parenting coaching, and all of the above, right? So you have,
and then some.
I know you're so experienced in what you do, and we love having you here on the show here with us. And we didn't talk about. I kind of want to go back to the very beginning as to, why, Debbie, do you do what you do? Because we usually cover that at the beginning of the show, and we didn't do that. And because I know you so well, I kind of missed it. But those out there that don't know you, tell us a little bit about why you do this, because you've gone over and above, what coaches, a lot of certified coaches do. I mean, going through the Florida Supreme Court, being certified family mediator, qualified arbitrator. I mean, you've gone over and above what normally those that do to their expertise. So what drives you to do something like what you're doing?
Well, I got started with it because I went obviously through my own divorce, which was pretty horrific. We were together 17 years and then got divorced, and it was very contentious. And it's protracted. It just keeps going and going and going. And I've been divorced for 16 years. But when I went through it, I had my attorney, I had my accountant. But once I went through the divorce, I walked out on the courthouse steps with my divorce decree. Everyone was gone. I was like, well, now what do I do? I didn't have a plan in place. I didn't know. It was like, there you are. We're done. We've done our job. Here's your agreement. And there I stood saying, well, now what? And so I thought there has got to be a better way. There's got to be more support. There's got to be more information out there for people going through divorce. There's got to be someone who can help those people. You've gone from being a wife and mother, maybe stay-at-home mom, and now all of a sudden you have to go back to work. You're no longer a wife. How do you co-parent with a narcissist? I mean, there's so many things, yet there wasn't someone there who could pull it all together. And that's why I got into it, because I thought there just has to be a better way. And then I flew out to San Diego because they had a holistic coaching program that I wanted to take. Got certified over many, many weeks doing that. And then became certified in collaborative in 2 states, and, going and getting certified as a family mediator and arbitrator. And now I'm getting my PhD in conflict analysis and resolution. And my dissertation is within family law, obviously. But there's just so much information that I feel people don't get. And I don't want people to have to go through what I went through. And so with my clients, if you're a client of mine full time, you have my cell number. And so I have people calling me 10 o'clock at night, the kids didn't come home, or they're calling me on the weekends, because they're upset about something, and I take their call. So, and you don't get that from a therapist or an attorney, but that was one thing that I noticed going through my divorce, that I wish there had been that lifeline for me, that I could call somebody who was knowledgeable, who could talk me off of the ledge, reassure me. Because to go, Cece, to go a whole weekend and not have a question answered, it drives you crazy.
Yeah.
And why put that on somebody who's already in a tough spot as it is? Mm-hmm. So it's my passion now. So
I totally understand. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the setting boundaries and communication. Let's talk a little bit further, because I know the first part of the show, if anybody missed it, you've got to go back and listen to it, because we covered some really good stuff, things that truly can help you being able to move forward in your divorce. And also, not only it's kind of when we're setting our boundaries, we're setting it for it seems like it continues on. I don't want to say for life, but I do think that we start something within ourselves, that we start looking within ourselves and saying, okay, this is what I need, and this is what's good for me. And I start verbalizing, and I start, making that path. And so I think when we begin, as we're moving forward through divorce, and we start to set boundaries, we start setting those boundaries as we continue in our life. And I think it's really an important tool that we can do, something that's very important for us as individuals to learn how to do it properly, and how to, kind of educate those that are around us what our boundaries are, not necessarily meaning to hurt them or whatever, but what's important to us, right? So yeah.
And feeling comfortable in setting boundaries, right? Because if you're going to set a boundary, you have to be comfortable with conflict. That's a fact, because now I'm telling somebody, no, I don't like that. And if you continue to call me that name, I'm walking away or I'm hanging up. And that's conflict. You're starting a conflict where there wasn't one. So you have to be your own advocate, and you have to learn to be comfortable. And like with anything else, you only learn by doing. Mm-hmm. So just expect that the first time you come up against somebody and you're setting this boundary, whether it's coworker, friends, an ex, your kids, you're going to feel uncomfortable. But, feel the fear and do it anyway, push through on that. And be an advocate for yourself. And that means the minute your ex is doing something that you don't like, you don't wait until the 10th time to set a boundary. Right away, you set that boundary, you tell them what it is, and you stick to it. And you don't vacillate. Consistency is so important. If you tell them, no, I don't want you calling me, I'm not going to answer your call, and then they call and you answer, well, now you're right back to square one because you're not being consistent. Mm-hmm. And so it's very important to be your own advocate and have consistency and do it straight away. Don't wait until, a month down the road when he's done it or she's done it 10 times.
Right. Absolutely. That old saying, do what you say and say what you do. Right.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so what other things do we come across as we're moving through divorce that we need to kind of think about a boundary?
Well, I think there's definitely, and that could be a whole episode in and of itself, is dealing with a narcissist when it comes with communication and boundaries, because I'm definitely going to deal different with you setting a boundary as opposed to a narcissist. So there's that you have to think about. And then also boundaries with yourself, right? I mean, so many times, and I've done it myself, everything else is more important. And yet I say, I really need to exercise for my mental health. That's got to be my boundary. I've got to do this. And we don't stick to even boundaries within ourselves, right? Like I'm not going to get waylaid to where a friend calls and, okay, all right, that's more important than maybe me exercising for my mental health. That's our own boundaries. So we have to be very cognizant, very self-aware of what we need and make us a boundary, have our personal boundaries. And then I do think, dealing with a narcissist or someone with narcissistic tendencies, because not everybody who has those tendencies is a narcissist. Mm-hmm. But if they have the tendencies, they still have that behavior. And then how are you going to deal with those? I think those are two areas when we're talking about boundaries moving forward.
Yeah. Well, I really do believe that setting boundaries is something that's a great thing, because it gives you a clear understanding. It makes you redefine yourself, makes you understand what it is you're going to tolerate, what you're not going to tolerate, right?
Absolutely.
And setting those boundaries that are based on good for you. And then also you're making the other person aware. It's not like you're trying to be mean to them, but you're making them aware that this is what's important to me. And if they care about you, which of course our exes don't, but if they care about you, they'll try to appease you and try to, make that work for you. If they don't care about you, they're going to try to continue to push your buttons, which even more reasons we need those boundaries, right?
Absolutely.
We don't need our buttons pushed. Oh yeah. So absolutely. So it's very important to do that. And I think, reaching out to someone like Debbie, a divorce coach, if you're going through divorce and you're looking at trying to set those clear boundaries for yourself and for your family, maybe reaching out to someone like Debbie, a divorce coach, to try to talk about some of these things and how do we put these in place? How do we make them that's a feasible thing? Like you said, before we were talking about being authentic about it, true to us. And then how do we actually get that across to someone else that we're talking with, that we're having a difficult time with it at that time? So, yeah. And I love what you said about, about the three things about whether, is he like trying to push your button? Is he really being authentic and, really wanting to help? Or is he just being a pain in the neck? You know,
Right,
so to speak.
right. Because that's going to dictate if you can be honest with yourself, right? And it's difficult, but to be honest and say, you know what, this really is coming from a place where he does care about the kids,
Mhm.
and not being vindictive. How you figure out where they're coming from, it's going to dictate your response, or it should dictate your response, right? It's going to make you stop and think, and then you're going to handle those situations differently.
Right, absolutely. Well, I think we're going to have you come back again, because I do think we do need more with regards to how do we communicate with someone that is very difficult, right? And that knows how to push our buttons and those kind of things. So I would love to be able to have you come back and talk a little bit about
Absolutely.
that, as they're going through divorce, because it really truly is a time where we need to focus on our families and being able to move forward in a very positive way versus, arguing and being in that muckety muck of things where we're not accomplishing anything and we're just running up our attorney's bill. And so we don't necessarily need to do that. So there's different ways of doing that. And you, as an expert, know mediation is very, very important. You'll hear me say all the time here on our network that I love mediation. I feel like it's truly a wonderful thing if it's used properly. And then, also, I'd like people to understand more about what collaborative
Right.
divorce is. So, yeah, so those are some topics I think that I would love to be able to bring forward to our audience. So,
That'd be
yeah.
great. Anytime. I love being on the show, and I'm so glad that you're doing this, Cece, because you're disseminating information that needs to get out there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I hope that we are. I do believe that we are. So, everyone out there, we'd love for you to contact Debbie Martinez. And again, she is a certified life coach, Florida Supreme Court certified family mediator, Florida Supreme Court qualified arbitrator. She's a collaborative divorce in both Florida and South Florida. Well, no, I'm sorry, Florida and South Carolina. And this is how you get a hold of her. So it's transformation through divorce.com. So transformation through divorce.com, and then email her at Debbie, Debbie, at transformationthroughdivorce.com. So make sure you reach out to her if you have any questions. I mean, she's been doing this for how long have you been doing this now? It's been for
15
several years.
years.
Wow.
15.
Yeah. So I know you've been doing it a while. You've been on our show many times, and so I want to thank you for that. And we hope to have you back again because there's so many other topics we can talk about. So,
Great.
any
Anytime.
last words you'd like to say in our closing?
No, I mean, and obviously, if anyone who's listening has a specific question, please reach out in an email and ask me. And if there's anything specific that you want to be covered down the road, let CC know, and we can set something up about that, because there's so much information.
Yeah, there truly is. And why spend the money? I love attorneys. I'm not, and nothing against attorneys at all. But again, they're really about legal procedure, making sure that you're covered in that respect. You need to have a team together if you're going through a difficult divorce. And, it's nice, even if, to have a divorce coach, and talk to them as you're moving forward, because it helps with the emotions. It helps being able to get through that and understand more of the procedures that you need to go through. She makes sure that everything keeps going along a clockwork, what you need to do, make you aware of what mediation is about, how to deal with that, those kind of things. So it's a great person to have on your team. So we
Well,
want.
and with a divorce coach, you can vent, but then at the end, I'm not going to let you hang up until we've resolved it, and how we're going to work with it moving forward. Whereas when I was going through it, I'd call my attorney at 400 an hour and vent. And then she was like, okay, and just hang up with no plan, because again, her wheelhouse is legal. It's not the emotional aspect and how to deal with all of that. And I think that's a huge difference with lawyers and divorce coaches, is that we are trained to deal with that other aspect. That is our wheelhouse. And you're not just venting, and you're venting for less because we charge way less than attorneys, but you walk away with a game plan.
Right. That's a big thing, is making people realize that you have tools that you can use. You know, you're experienced in this, you've been through this before. And so your experience in the behaviors of individuals and how they react and what's going to happen. And so when someone says, oh, this happened, you're like, okay, you know, I've been down through this before. So this worked. Let's try this technique. Let's try the way of doing this. And it's very important to be able to move forward. And I tell you what, it really makes things go a lot smoother when you start to understand, you know, where maybe the other person is coming from, how you can relate to them a little bit better. It helps you to understand that, because we're not all the same, you know. So it's
Right.
yeah.
Right. No, absolutely not. And if you have a plan in place, it takes a lot of the fear factor away, you know. So it's very important too to have someone who can help you look past the divorce and implement a plan, because now you're not so fearful about the future, because you know you've talked about it. You have some semblance of a game plan post divorce.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And it helps to have structure. It helps to have a
No,
structure.
absolutely.
That. So absolutely. And then following through after divorce, because like you said, you know, with you, and the same thing with me, it's like, okay, the divorce is over with. Now what?
Now
You know,
what?
there's many items that needed to be executed, didn't get executed, right? And I'm sitting here going, well, how do I do that? You know, how do I go about doing these things? And so, yeah, so it's nice to be able to continue that. So a divorce coach, so even after your divorce, can follow you through to make sure those items that need to get executed will get executed. Things will follow through. And then if they don't, they can help you to assist you as to what avenues do you need to take in order to make things happen, you know, make things, you know, be completed. So that's very important too. So, well, we love you. We think you're wonderful, Debbie Martinez.
Thank
So
you,
thank you
Cece. I
so much.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show here with us today. We do appreciate it. So you guys are listening to Going Solo: Life After Divorce or a Relationship Loss. You're listening to newstreamingnetwork.com, home of Going Solo and Going Bold, and WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio. So we do appreciate you. We hope that you'll listen to us next time, and we'll be back. Talk to you later. Bye.